Hey everyone, it's Brian, and welcome back to the More For Me and You podcast. Today, we welcome in an absolute legend into the podcast studio. But before we get into that, make sure you go hit that subscribe button so you can stay tuned for future episodes, as well as check out some of the previous ones we've done in the past. But like I said, as for today, we welcome in an absolute legend, Lloyd J. Schwartz. And if you don't know that name, he is the co creator and co producer of The Brady Bunch. Yeah, the iconic Brady Bunch. We get a chance to sit down with Lloyd to talk about his journey from being kind of a comedian all the way to producing one of the most iconic shows in history. And we also get a chance to talk about his dad, who you'll know as Sherwood, who created Gilligan's Island and also helped create the Brady Bunch. And lastly, we get to actually dip into Lloyd's journey as an author. So stay tuned for that. And later in the episode, we talk about a film that he picked that's playing for free on Momi2 called Mrs. Miniver. And if you don't know that one, it's a classic from World War II. And I had never seen it, but so glad that he chose it because it was incredible and definitely worth your time, especially if you're into classics, if you're into movies about the war, and if you're just kind of a history buff. So, with all that said, have fun, enjoy this episode, and we will see you in the pod.
Yeah, that's right. You're tuning in to the More For Me and You podcast. That's real interviews, real movie reviews, real people, real journeys. If you real, lock in. I've been working all night, early in the morning. If you hustle high, hustle, you can never waste a moment. That's more for me and you. 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 Let's go.
I want to talk about this guy.
All right.
You know him?
Yeah.
Perfect.
I grew up with him.
Yeah. So who are you? And where are you from? Just let's go back.
All right. Well, I was born in Studio City.
Mm-hmm.
I still live in Studio City. I've never changed zip codes. My wife came from Minnesota, and I said, we can live anywhere in the world as long as it was Studio City. And so she agreed with that. And I grew up in a show business family. Mm-hmm. My father was a pretty prominent writer, producer, as my uncles were. They started off like writing for all the old comedians. We're talking Milton Berle and Jackie Gleason, and my dad did Red Skelton and Arthur and Groucho Marx and all that.
We have the Milton Berle show on Momi2.
Oh, do you?
We do.
Okay, my uncle probably wrote that.
Very cool.
Some of that, yeah. And so that was kind of, they didn't bring it home very much. My dad didn't. He was a regular 50s kind of father, came home, and my wife, because my mother was there with a drink for him and all that, slippers or whatever that is from those days.
Yep.
And eventually, in terms of my career, I didn't start off working with him. I was always writing in high school and in college and kind of doing my own thing. And in college, I actually started with a black-white comedy team. And he was a Black Panther. And we were thrown out of many clubs in Los Angeles doing very risky kind of stuff. And we got in trouble with the government and the FBI and the CIA. And there were murders involved in it. And it was it was the 60s.
You went viral before you could go viral.
Yeah. So I ended up, I met like a Martin Luther King through him and Bobby Kennedy. And it was I can go through a whole college life, which was very bizarre. And it was at UCLA, and I was a cheerleader, and John Wooden and, Kareem, and I was supposed to room with Kareem. And my life has been pretty eclectic.
Yeah. So you went to UCLA then?
You went to UCLA.
Yeah. I'd love to get to know a little bit about you as Lloyd growing up too. So what were you kind of like? I mean, you obviously were a writer, but what were you kind of like? Were you always that comedian type?
It's a funny thing. We don't look at ourselves that way. I mean, my personality was what it was, and I remember, in grammar school and stuff, and I would do skits, and it always seemed like just the thing we should be doing. And then I ran into, when I was coach of one of my son's basketball, little peewee basketball thing, and I ran into a woman who was a mother of a kid way back, or she wasn't a mother, she was in my grammar school class. And she said, "You haven't changed at all." And I said, "Well,
You were the class clown, huh?
I guess I was. I guess I was."
But to you, it's just like, I'm just being myself. This
That's
is my
right.
personality. And
That's right. And then even in college, when I was an English major, and I took all my electives were all in theater and television, rather.
Yeah.
Television. And it came easily to me. And I also couldn't understand, I was in a fraternity, why anybody wouldn't be doing this. I mean, and why they found it difficult. And at that same time, then I started working. I was a summer camp counselor, but I also did dialogue coach. Dad asked me to do dialogue coach a little bit on Gilligan's Island. And then on another show he did called It's About Time. So I worked with Imogene Coca, which was great.
yeah.
And then when he was going to do the Brady Bunch, I was already written for Love American Style. And I was doing this comedy. And he said, "I want you to be on the Brady Bunch." And I said, "I don't want to do that." He said, "Well, I know, but I've got these 6 kids going to be on the show." And I said, "No, I'm going to do my own thing."
Yeah. I don't want to do what you're doing.
No,
Yeah.
no. And I said, "You're only giving that because I'm your son anyway, and I don't want to do that." And he said, "Okay, describe who should do this. Who should be dialogue coach for these kids?" And I said, "Well, you should find somebody who's worked with kids." And he said, "Well, you ran a summer camp."
Yep.
I said, "Yeah." He said to somebody, I said, "You get somebody who's been a dialogue coach before." And he said, "Well, you did that." And someone who's been a performer, and you did that. And I have a degree in writing. And he said, "Okay, I'll do it."
Sounds like Dad did his homework.
Well, yeah. Well, I'd come home and I'd tell him about it.
Yeah. I mean, Sherwood was a pretty smart man.
Very smart man. But I said, "Here's the deal." And this is kind of interesting. I said, "I will only do this show and work on this show if I can continue doing my own things." And he said, "Okay." And I said, "I'll be working very hard for you, but I got to do my own things." He said, "Okay." And I said, "Also, you can never know where I live." And he thought, and my mother especially thought that was a little weird. I said, "Here's the deal. If I'm working with you 5 days a week and you're my parents also, and I see you like on a weekend, there's just got to be someplace where you're not."
Yes.
And they never knew where I lived for a year, and it was not that far away from them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. And my wife and I live in Orange County.
Right.
And my family's all in LA. And we all kind of work with each other in a sense. Like my father's a distributor, and so I get content from his company for Momi too. And so I do deal with them. It is nice to not be near them sometimes because, you kind of break away the work thing and the family thing, but then we also love getting together as a family.
Right.
And so I can feel that. I totally understand that.
Right. It worked very well for us. It worked very well for us.
That's great. Why did you, was it that moment, like the Brady Bunch moment, that's why you got into the biz? Or
No,
like, did you already really, like, you knew, like, hey, this is what I want to do? Like,
yeah. I thought that the comedy thing, and I wasn't really very good, but I thought that was going to be
the black and white comedy didn't take off like.
Well, there were a lot of problems. There was he was killed, which was one reason, you know, and I wanted to do my own. I started to write. I wrote a mini series before there were mini series about John Wilkes Booth.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I eventually turned that into a one-person play that plays around the country.
Okay.
And
is that still available? Can we find that miniseries?
Yeah, no, the miniseries never got. It sold to CBS, but they never made it.
Oh man.
So, yeah, well, they changed presidents. It was a go, and then suddenly,
Yeah.
it gets thrown out. And it's good. I mean, I like the script, but then I said, how am I going to get this done? And I've done that a few times. I've turned something where I can't get a movie done because it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I can do a play. And I have a one-person show out now on Mary Walker, which is turned into a screenplay for Walden.
Okay.
And she's the only woman to win the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Yes. Okay.
3,500 men have won the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Wow.
One woman. And she's a Civil War doctor. So that is a one-person play that plays around that I wrote and directed. And a producer came, David Permit came, and big producer. And he said, that's a great story, but I said, yeah, but David, that's just a one-person play because he saw it reading. But this is a movie, and I gave him the script I already wrote. And then they bought it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would love to see like those older scripts, like you talking about your mini series with John Wilkes Booth. Like, I would love to see some studios go back and like kind of the vault of
They should.
what do they have that they've already paid for
They should.
and has never been made.
Yes, they should do that. I have been an executive in my career at ABC and at Paramount, and I would always go in and talk to them about that, and they just never thought about doing it. I had an idea where, like there's a stage that's sitting empty for a week. So I said, just give it to a producer and do a half-hour show, and come see it on Friday the afternoon, just without cameras and stuff. And I said, you might find an actor you like, you might find a director, writer, whatever, and it's free, and they would love to do it. And then I was working at ABC, and we were getting clobbered by American Idol at the time. And I said, don't put anything against it. Instead, give that hour to all these different people and let them do whatever they want. And then let America be the one who decides whether they like it or not. This was just too obvious,
Yeah,
But
smart.
I come from the 60s, and I said, let's think outside the box.
And let's help the little guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's always an opportunity, like instead of putting them on at 3 a.m. in the morning when no
Right.
one's going to watch them, put them on at a prime time and see if it takes off.
Especially if you get something, as I said, like American Idol was getting a 24 share and everything else was getting a 3. So just try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've seen the new show on Apple, but The Studio.
Yeah.
And it's you bring that up, like we're talking about, like, you know, they're them buying shows or scripts or whatever, and then never being made. And obviously they have the Scorsese movie that
Right.
they have, and they're like, yeah, we just bought it to kill it, and it's like, that's a bummer.
Oh no, I've been
There's
through
so
that.
many scripts that are sitting there just not used.
When I was doing a couple of shows, one at Paramount, one at Universal, and through my dad, and I said, I don't want to just on your table on your coattails here. I said, I'll do it, but they got to give me an independent pilot script.
Yeah.
And they did, and nobody ever read it. I mean, they paid me for it. And then I was working at ABC, and they got Red Fox off of NBC. He was doing Sanford and Son. They brought him over to ABC and gave him a variety show just to get him off of Sanford. And then they gave him 3 pilots. And, he was going to be executive producer. That's the last thing they wanted, was him to be executive producer of pilots or show. So all these people were working on it, knowing they had 0 chance.
Yeah.
And no executive even looked at it. And they made these pilots. They just buried it. But they got them off of Sanford and Son and raised the ratings on them.
I mean, there's a method to certain, and the method to getting ratings, method that fully, I don't understand. You probably understand a little better than I do.
Yeah.
But it all works kind of. So it's just unfortunate when things get buried and they don't get made, and
When there was a
a little bit
woman,
of misdirection.
I was very close with a woman who was executive at ABC, and they went over with Silverman to NBC, and almost everybody's gone who I'm talking about, so I don't feel too bad about it. But she was assigned head of comedy development, and they had spent all the development money on a show called Super Train. So she had to meet with all these people coming in presenting shows, and she just had to find a reason to say no. She was not allowed to buy anything because they had no money left.
Wow.
So all of us writers and stuff who were coming up with things and working so hard on our presentations were going in not knowing we had 0 chance, not 1% like we usually have. This was 0.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I would be very sad if we didn't take a moment to talk about your father.
Okay.
Sherwood is obviously a legend.
Yes. No, actually, he moved up to icon. He was a legend for a while.
He's an icon now.
I-
Okay. I could go with that. Absolutely.
I got moved up a little bit to legend. I used to be here Sherwood the legend and Lloyd. Now he got moved up, and then I go.
For sure. No, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Everyone knows obviously what he was able to do. Gilligan's Island, Brady Bunch.
Sure.
He's got a very successful career.
Right.
But I would love to know a little bit more about Sherwood, the father.
Mm-hmm.
How was he as a dad? And like, how was that growing up with him?
Okay. You saw the Brady Bunch.
Yes.
You saw Mike Brady.
Mm-hmm.
That was Dad.
Okay, so everything was kind of
He was
factual in a sense. Like that was his,
factual
that was
in
him.
terms of attitude toward kids and being there for your kids. And in fact, the show originally, Brady Bunch, was supposed to be about the parents. So the first year or so, I had a song that said, "Here's the story of a family." We turned it to that's the way we became. The kids sang it after that.
Yeah.
Because we realized it was about the kids. Dad's view was you had to be there for your kids. Therefore, the kids couldn't really influence the parents' lives very much. So that's why that switched, but it was his philosophy of raising kids.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What's something about your father that you remember, like from your childhood?
I remember so.
Well, other than
Okay, I'll tell you,
TV
here was
stuff, though, like
here
what's
was
like
here was here was an anecdote about him, which I think will explain all that. We lived at a house which had in Studio City, of course.
Yeah.
But it had a long curved driveway on a hill, and so it was my job. We had chores. My job was to take we had a little garbage dolly. Would take the garbage trucks. Cans down the hill, and we had to separate them like we do now. But it was in paper and then cans. And so I'm taking down this can, and it fell over and rolled, making the biggest amount of noise ever.
bet.
And these cans are flopping and going down that thing. I was devastated. I had done this horrible thing. And he came out and he said, what happened? He said, well, and he said, oh, okay. I said, I didn't. He said, yeah, well, no. Were you trying to do something good? And I said, yeah. He said, you didn't try to do that? No. I said, then what are you worried about? And then and the two of us in the middle of the night, whatever, we're picking up the cans. And that's the kind of father he was.
Yeah.
That was a great lesson. Were you trying to do something good?
Yep.
And it was an accident. What?
Yeah. So I have a 3-year-old.
There you go.
And he does a lot of things wrong, right? He's learning. He's in
Yeah.
a very big learning stage, very curious. So
Sure.
That's a great life lesson.
Yeah.
Especially for me, even though he's 3. As raising him, I can
Yeah.
keep that in the back of my mind. As
Yeah,
long as you're trying to do something good.
That's right.
Even though if you make a mistake, like you may have to own up to your mistake and may have to pay the consequences for what you did. Like if that trash can or whatever had rolled into like someone else's car, well, we
Yeah.
got to pay for the damage, right?
That's
You
right.
got to pay for the
But
consequences.
the lesson would have been the same.
Yes.
My only advice to you is with the 3-year-old, I have 2 sons and 2 grandsons. My sons are they work with me sometimes, and one's 45, 35 and 43.
How old are they again?
Yeah, they're 8 years apart.
Yeah.
Okay. But with the kids, I always just said, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
My only guideline was just don't let them hurt them. Don't let them hurt themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But anything was fine, and I never ended up punishing either of them. They're fine. Yeah.
That's lovely. So let's go back to young Lloyd.
Okay.
Okay. We'll go back to your story again.
Okay.
First 10 minutes of the first set that you're on.
Okay.
What would you go back and tell yourself?
First set I was ever on was at Gilligan's Island, and it was outside. And what I learned from it, and I'll tell you the reason why, but I learned from it is that everything is interesting at all times in every department. And I'm there, and they're filming outside, and there's a gobo stand, and it had a big branch on it. And it was back there behind everything. And I'm going, and everybody goes, don't touch that. It was just this gobo stand with a thing. I'm going, what the hell? Why? Because it had the branch was obliterating the shadow of the boom. Because right when I started watching it, I said, I know everything. I'm watching this and I knew absolutely everything. I thought.
You thought, yeah.
And then after that, I said, I don't know everything. And now I never know everything. And I'm just full of questions. One time, and I always approached everything as I don't know everything. And we were filming at Brady Bunch. We were filming in an amusement park. And there was a roller coaster. I love roller coasters. So I went on it a few times.
So you've been to Magic Mountain a few times.
Not so much recently anymore, but yes, I did.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was this roller coaster, and I went on it, and it said on it, don't stand up or whatever, something like that. And then we were getting ready to film, and the camera mount was Mitchell cameras were very big. And they tied it off, and the camera was going to look at the Brady family as it went on the roller coaster. And I said, I don't like how tall that is. And I was associate producer at the time. And I said, I want to send that through once before with the cameraman. And they sent it through, and it never came back.
Oh, wow.
It hit something somewhere.
Hit a tree or hit a light or hit a pole or something. Yeah.
And I saved the cameraman's life.
Yeah.
But it was only just through asking the question. So I always ask questions all the time.
That's smart. That's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, Craig and we ask questions all the time to make sure that this podcast goes well.
Yeah.
And we're just in a very simple room. I couldn't even imagine being on a roller coaster doing this podcast.
I just would ask this. Are the cameras turned on? Is the mic turned on? Are we good?
Usually, right? We forgot to press record. We've had some issues with batteries overheating and certain things like that, but we've done a fairly good job. We forgot to, I think it was something with recording some audio on one of the episodes.
There was
Jeff's episode. Yeah, something was going on, and everything was fine. We could hear each other. You and I could hear each other perfectly fine.
Yeah.
He could hear us too.
All right.
And Jeff happened to just touch a mic. And I don't know what happened, but we lost about 20 minutes of the first part of the episode. And so luckily Jeff was a very patient person. He's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
So luckily it worked out. But yeah, totally. You have to ask questions. You got to make sure things are right. And it's almost like doing safety checks on a construction site or whatever you're doing.
Absolutely.
Always best to look around.
Yeah.
Especially when you have the talent on the roller coaster. I would say you're probably asking the right questions to make sure they don't get hurt either.
Oh yeah. No, it was, I'll tell you this about that particular incident.
Mm-hmm.
I've read about that incident. There've been a lot of books and things written about Brady.
Yeah.
And everything was about it right, except that it was Robert Reed, according to these books, and according to Robert Reed, who's the one who said, send the thing through.
Love that.
He wasn't even there, by the way.
He wasn't there, but he gets the
because
credit for it.
he's not in that roller coaster shot because he wouldn't go on it.
Oh, wow. Doesn't like roller coasters, but gets all the credit for it.
Yeah.
Good for him. Thank you for setting the record straight. I'm sure people have been worrying about that for a while.
Oh, I'm sure.
So, Lloyd, on the personal side, because you do like to separate that in the sense that, you worked with your family,
right?
You didn't want them to even know where you lived.
Right.
So I'm guessing you have a sense of work-life balance.
Yeah.
You work hard. Mm-hmm. You have to get to where you've been and the legacy that you've been able to leave so far.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do on your personal time? Like, what is your favorite thing to do and unwind, whether it be with your wife or with yourself or?
I love reading and I love traveling.
Mm-hmm.
I was always a little league coach. I did all that with the kids growing up.
Yeah.
One of the things my wife and I do, and it may sound not personal but professional, but for the last 41 years, we've had a children's theater.
Yes.
And this came about. Barbara came from the Minneapolis Children's Theater, and it's the most famous children's theater in the country. She moved out here. I won't go through her personal life, but she came out here. We met. We had a 3-year-old then we had a 3-year-old Andrew, Andy to everybody else, but Andrew to me still.
Yeah.
And we took him to children's theater, and we couldn't find any we liked. And so she said, let's do a play. And so we did Little Red Riding Hood. And I wrote the music, the lyrics, the book, directed, put our friends in it, Barbara's in it, 3 other people. And it was very successful at the park. And somebody from Theater West, which where we are housed now, came and said, that was, you heard about it. And Theater West said, would you come over and consider being the children's theater division of Theater West? So we did this one play. And it was very successful. And they said, now would you do a season? And I only had this one play in me. I never saw myself as writing more than Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
They're now 18. And that's where we are every Saturday. We do school field trips during the week.
Wow.
And the LA City schools have authorized us. And, I think we did 35 field trips this last season,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you say, what do I do in my spare time? Well, I'm there a lot.
Yeah.
3 or 4 times a week.
And you just love it. I mean, it's not work to you.
No. Oh, no.
I mean, doing something with your wife, that's incredible to have that type of a passion together.
Yeah. So I taught producing at UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't producing at UCLA. I taught producing. The class was at UCLA. Okay. And I begin it by saying, I don't care if you go into the business, but I would like to talk about mathematics. And the week has 7 days. Yes. And most people work for 5 days to get to 2 days on the weekend that they like. Don't be a person who doesn't like what they do for 5 days to get to 2 days they like. That's called bad math.
That is bad math.
Now, good math is liking what you do for 5 days to get to 2 days you also like. That's 7-0 good math. Don't have to go into the business. But for God's sakes, do good math.
I can relate to that math. Worked in the corporate world for 15 years.
There you go.
And it was great. I have some great relationships, great stories, a lot of fun. But I will say that there were moments where, you want to get to the weekend. Hump day was a day to celebrate because you were halfway there, and you just wanted to enjoy
but that's
the
not
weekend.
to say. But it's not to say you don't have to pay your dues.
Oh, 100%. You still have to work hard, but if you can get to a point where you love what you do, and you do what you love, it makes the week go by a little smoother.
Yeah.
It doesn't go by faster or slower. It's just enjoyable.
You know, when we were I did 3 camera shows. I've done every kind of show, but I remember a 3 camera show, and we were doing Brady Brides, which was one of, Brady had many different variations, and we still have ones coming up. But,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I remember on Friday, because I do a lot of theater,
Yeah.
and I remember on Friday, it's like, it's a Monday to Friday schedule. It's like putting a little play on. And I would say the same thing every Friday. I says, I can't believe I get to do this again next week. And it was just heaven.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'll definitely have to bring my son up to a show.
Please. We're doing, if you don't see before the end of May or June, where we take the summer off, and we'll be back with Jack and the Beanstalk. And what's your son's name?
Caden.
Caden's going to love Jack and the Beanstalk.
Very cool.
There's a rap in there. Fee, fi, fo, fum. I say fee, fi, fo, fum.
You got a little rap, a little beat and everything.
The giant
That's
does the
incredible.
rap. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, we'll have to bring up and we can do it on, is it just weekday or is it on Saturdays?
Saturdays at 1. And
Okay.
then during the week, there's school field trips.
Perfect. And where can people find this? Because let's give it a plug. Like, is there
great.
a website? Is there something where people can find
You
it?
go to www.theaterwest.org.
Theaterwest.org.
Right. And then you go to the Storybook Theater page, and it has all this about it. We're the Storybook Theater of Los Angeles.
Very cool. Yeah, we'll have to get a crew together and come up in a caravan and make that happen.
I'll even, I'll cut the price for you.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'll pay full price, no problem. As long as he has a good time, that's all that matters.
They keep wanting us to raise the prices, and we won't, because we want to be everybody's first play.
That's incredible. That's a great journey to be a part of.
Yeah.
And to impact that many kids as well.
Kids,
that's phenomenal.
Kids today don't see anything that's not on a screen.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my son loves television, so.
Yeah.
Could you indulge us a little bit?
Sure.
Share something about whether it be your career or life that you either have never shared with someone or you have rarely shared with people.
I remember I never told my parents.
There we go. I like this. This is getting juicy.
No, they were a little bit old fashioned.
Uh-huh.
And so it was the 60s, and I was dating a girl who was Chinese,
Okay.
and her name was Cindy Lou.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents always was Cindy Lou. They thought L-O-U. They thought she was from the South. And I never told them differently.
Like Cindy Lou Who.
Yeah, Cindy Lou.
Oh, she's from a Dr. Seuss book. That's great.
Cindy Lou.
Yeah.
That's not a terribly embarrassing story, but
No, but I mean that's generational too. I mean that's something
right.
from that time that is it's impactful because it's
Oh,
something that
on that same line, when I was doing Carruthers and Blood, my comedy team was Carruthers and Blood, and so they came to a big thing, and I brought not as a date, but somebody I knew pretty well. Her name was Tracy Reed. She was a black girl. And my parents, afterwards, first of all, I think they were the only white people in the audience, which was really weird for them. And people were smoking dope and stuff, and they had no idea.
probably felt a little uncomfortable.
Yes, they had no idea what was going on. And it went very well. And so I introduced them to Tracy. And then about 2 weeks later, my dad called up and said, that Tracy Reed, that girl that you brought. I said, yeah. She ever acted? And I said, I don't know. And he said, because they're looking for a beautiful black girl at Paramount for Love American Style, these little interstitial things. Can you find out? And I said, okay. So I called Tracy up and I said, have you ever acted? She said, well, I was Miss Teenage America, and I'm taking some acting classes. And I said, so what are you doing this afternoon? No, I'll pick you up. And so we picked her up and went on to Paramount, brought her into Paramount.
She's like, where are we going?
Into Paramount. They go in, she interviews with the people. And that was at noon or something. At 2:00, she was a regular on Love American Style.
That's incredible.
And she put me down as her agent.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that. So let's transition. I want to definitely talk about your book.
Sure.
Got this sitting on the table here.
Do I hold it up?
Sure. Yeah. Show right into that camera there. It might have been.
It might. No, it's a real book. Oh, I mean the title. The title. Yeah,
the book might have been too.
Yeah, there we go.
But it is.
Yeah, it is.
It might have been by Lloyd J. Schwartz.
That's it.
Tell us about your book and why did you write it?
Well, I do a lot of history writing, and I kept thinking about my grandparents. And to be honest, I never understood why my grandfather married my grandmother. And they came from like Lithuania, back around the time of the beginning of the 20th century, 1900s, around then. And I said, it looked like it was an arranged marriage. And that started intriguing me about arranged marriages. And so I wrote this story, It Might Have Been. And I said, I wanted to do it differently because usually when you have an arranged marriage, the guy is an asshole and he beats the shit out of the woman. And then that's the guy she's married to. And then if there's another guy who's a nice, wonderful guy. And I said, well, what if the guy she marries is also a good guy? And as the story develops, and she has a child with the night before she was supposed to marry with the other guy, and whose kid is it, and all that. Those are the plot devices.
But Jerry Springer gets involved, and you're not the father.
Yeah. But I was just very intrigued with that. And so you have the story involves coming to America. They started off in these shtetls, they're called, and I said it in the Ukraine. They come to America, and one guy doesn't have any money at all, and the other guy's kind of wealthy, and then they come to here, and then it reverses. Because the guy that she was originally in love with, he becomes a doctor and successful, and the guy's business goes south and all. And so all those things, and the kids and the kids they have in the families, it just became a very kind of an epic story. And it's called It Might Have Been, and it's a tearjerker. People have read it, and they said, why'd you make me cry? And I said, I'm sorry. The story took it where it had to take it. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, and I really, I have a website for it, www.itmighthavebeen.com. That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
And you can get it you can go through there and you get it on Amazon, and it's in Kindle, and it's on hard copy and soft copy. And and you can even get to me through that. So
wonderful.
And I love to hear people's reactions, especially the ones who said they cried.
I'll definitely make sure I get it and take a read and get back to you on it.
If you're real good at the end of this, I'll give you the copy of the book.
Oh, that would be amazing.
You have to be good though.
And if I'm really good, will you sign it for me too?
That's an additional price. For
okay, I'll pay for that. No problem. Okay. It'll make up for the savings that I'm going to get on the tickets for the children's theater. Perfect. Last thoughts. Anything you'd love to share with our audience and about you, your life, your story, anything?
No, I'll just say in terms of my career and what has guided it the whole time is if I come up with an idea, it tells me what it should be. Mm-hmm. I've been very fortunate in my career to have done a lot of theater, a lot of movies, a lot of television in every form, children's theater, musicals, and done a lot of that. And the thing will tell me, oh, this is a play. This is a miniseries. This is a thing. And then when I get into the writing, I don't do any of my own writing. The characters do all my own writing.
Wow.
And so I think it was Ring Lardner Jr. who said, why write a movie when you can just watch it in your typewriter? And that's kind of how I approach it. And I love writing because I can't wait to see what these people, my favorite people, are the people I create, what they're going to do. And they get into trouble and they get out of trouble, but it's up to them.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Don't force things.
No.
Just let them create themselves.
Yeah, get out of the way.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll end on that for this segment here.
Good.
Thanks for sharing about your life and some moments and some moments that you've never shared as well. Appreciate that. But with that, we'll be right back.
Being a small business is difficult, and that's why each episode we've decided to support a different small business with a little shout out. And being that Lloyd is a published author, we wanted to shout out an online bookstore. And no, it's not Amazon. This is a little shop in New York called Books Are Magic. And you can check them out at booksaremagic.net. And the coolest thing about them, just like Momi2, is that they support independent artists. So go check them out and go buy a book, and maybe even buy Lloyd's book at booksaremagic.net. And with that, let's get back into the pod.
Mr. Lloyd J. Schwartz, would you like to play a game called This or That?
Okay.
You okay with that?
Yes, I'm.
It's fun.
I don't know what this is.
I mean, we'll see if it's fun.
Okay.
But this game is brought to you by Coastline Travel.
Oh,
so
great.
if you're looking for any travel needs, I use them for my personal travel, for any flights, hotels, excursions, anything that I am doing or my wife and I are taking a trip or a family trip or whatever, we go to coastlinetravel.com and they'll literally book everything for you.
I will absolutely have to definitely remember this because we try to travel somewhere pretty big each year.
Yeah, I can definitely set you up with the team there and get you an advisor and they can help you. And the cool thing is they don't charge any fees.
How do they make the money?
It's all kickbacks from the hotels and the flights and all that stuff. So very similar to what you'd use for like an Expedia or a Travelocity or whatever. They just get kickbacks from the flights and the hotels and all that stuff.
Perfect.
And they would just go in and do everything.
Okay.
So pretty cool.
This is the game?
No, that's not the game. That's just who it's brought to you by. So coastlinetravel.com. Go visit them.
I thought I was pretty good at this game.
You're incredible. You're doing great so far. I'm going to ask you 20 different questions.
Okay.
This or that questions.
Okay.
The first question we always ask every guest, it's the same question. All the other 19 are going to be tailored specifically for you.
I appreciate it.
Some fun stuff. Tacos or pizza?
Tacos.
Tacos, love it. Are you going hard shell or soft shell? What are you
Hard
doing?
shell.
In specific type of meat? Are we getting real specific?
Ground beef.
Ground beef. Beef. I love it. All right.
See, taco, let me say about pizza.
Yeah. Please.
I don't like pizza. I don't like pizza because I just think it's the holder. And like my wife likes plain pizza. I said, that's just the holder.
Yeah.
I like stuff dumped on it.
Okay.
So taco has the stuff in it already.
Yeah.
Nobody's just the taco shell.
I mean, you could also take a slice of pizza and fold it.
Yeah, I guess.
But I'm with you.
It's a little messy.
I'm with you though. I'm a taco guy.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we're in California, Southern California. We got better tacos than pizza. Come on.
Yeah.
It's not New York. Coffee or tea?
Neither.
Not a coffee or tea guy. You don't need caffeine to go.
No.
This just shows why you love life. You just love life.
Oh yeah.
It's beautiful. Books or movies?
Probably books.
Yeah, you're a big reader.
I like mostly history or biographies. My wife likes, and it's funny because of my book, but my wife likes historical fiction.
Okay.
I mean, like famous people in historical fiction.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that. They never did that.
Yeah.
And it's like when you see a movie and it comes based upon.
Yep. Based on a true story.
Forget it.
Yeah.
It never happened. Maybe the names were the same. And then all the people walk out of the movie theater and go, I had no idea that, because it didn't happen. That's it.
Yeah. Like some events are tweaked around.
I guess I've written lots of plays, historical plays. I've written historical movies and things. Never do I violate what my best interpretation of the truth is. And you can find that in books. But I don't put people in situations they never were in.
Good. This is a 3-parter.
Uh-oh.
We have TV, we have film, and we have life. Okay? TV, film, and life. Do you prefer comedy or drama for each of those? So, in TV, do you prefer comedy or drama?
Right now, comedy. Actually, no. Right now, drama. It used to be comedy.
Okay. In film?
Comedy, drama, or real life?
No, comedy or drama in film.
Probably drama.
Yeah. And then in life, in real life, comedy or drama?
I always find the comedic view of drama.
Love it. Do you prefer to text or to call?
I prefer to text because there's a written record of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you ever use like the speak to text?
No.
Okay. You're a purist. I love it. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Do you have any dogs?
I have a kind of a rental dog.
A rental dog?
Yes.
I haven't heard of those before. I've heard of a rescue dog. I haven't heard of a rental.
My younger son and his wife have moved in with us for a while, so he's kind of a rental dog.
Okay.
There's a big dog named Socks.
Socks. I love that. Does he have little white little feet?
No, I don't know why they named him that. And he's a mutt. And I mean, he's big.
Yeah.
And he's vicious to anybody coming to the door, but he's a wuss after that.
Sounds like my dog.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot like my dog. Would you rather be the funniest or the smartest person in the room?
Smartest.
You're naturally funny anyway, so it works out.
Maybe. People think that. It's funny.
Depends on the room.
I'm not a funny person. they always talk about the difference between I'm a person who says things that are funny,
Yeah.
and then there's people who says things funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yep.
And that's different.
Delivery versus material.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now this you actually touched on this already. Would you rather go back to the typewriter nostalgia, or do you prefer the laptop efficiency?
I like the laptop because I could never write at a typewriter. I had to write everything longhand.
Write it out and then put it in.
And then type it. But I can write it at a computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. What's more satisfying, laughs or applause?
I think applause for me.
Okay.
Mostly emotional moments. When I do a play or a movie, and if I get people to be emotionally involved and cry or something, that's better than either of those two things you said, laughing or applause.
Okay. I think people really need to take a chance to go to like a set and be like a live studio audience.
Yeah.
To understand that and be a part of it. It's really interesting to go to a live set and hear the laughter and hear the applause and know the difference and how that impacts even how the scene is. And,
oh, yeah.
Especially with like SNL, of course, right? When something's live, it makes more sense. But
it's so unnatural. Mm-hmm. It's unnatural in the theater too. I mean, the idea you say something and then you laugh and they stop laughing and then you don't do that in real life. We just talk.
We just talk, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Early morning writing or late night creativity?
Both.
You like both?
Yeah.
Doing it all the time, whenever it hits you.
That's it.
Okay. Whenever the inspiration comes. Legacy or innovation? So almost like continue the legacy or be the innovation?
Probably the innovation, because the legacy has just always been part of my life.
Yeah.
And it's like with like Brady or Gilligan, for example, we have a Brady musical it's going to start a national tour coming up soon. And the Gilligan musical plays around. And I always have to work on those. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily want to work on those, but I sure don't want anybody else to do those. And so that's just been continuing part of my life,
Yeah, definitely. And this is kind of a two-parter because it goes with it. But would you prefer to honor the tradition or break the mold?
Both on that. I mean, the person who runs, let's say Gilligan or Brady, the person who runs that is my dad.
Yeah.
Now, he is dead, okay? But I actually, on his deathbed, I made a promise on those two things that I would never do something that he wouldn't want done.
Okay.
Now, that takes it into new places.
Yeah.
But that's fine. But I have to say to him, would he want this done? And sometimes I'm in a meeting with a studio or something, and they're talking about taking it someplace that I don't want to go. And I have to tell them that I can't allow that because there's a guy over in Hillside Cemetery who wouldn't want that.
You made a promise to.
Right. And I will tell you, as hard-boiled as studio executives are and stuff, they don't really defeat that argument very much.
Yeah. Casting unknowns or casting stars?
Definitely casting unknowns. But if you're working for a studio or something, they force the other.
Of course.
Yeah.
But it's nice when you tell that story about that young lady who you helped get a job at Paramount. I mean, she was an unknown. How incredible is that?
I've started lots of unknowns, both in front of the camera or behind the camera.
Yeah.
And it's so encouraging. It's so encouraging when you see it work.
I mean, change someone's life.
Totally.
Absolutely change the trajectory.
I'll tell you about changing somebody's life.
Please.
I was working over at Paramount, and a guy came in selling sandwiches.
Okay.
Very nice guy, Peter, his name.
Yeah.
And very sandwich, and it was good, and like that. And he come another sandwich, and then he said, "I wrote a script. Would you read this script that I wrote?" And I do that all the time. So I read the script, and it was very good. I said, "Peter, you don't want to just keep selling sandwiches here." Mm-hmm. And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, I got this movie coming up, and I could use somebody on the set, dialogue coach and stuff." So it started him like that. And he ended up winning like 9 Emmys. He created Frasier,
Wow.
Yeah, Peter Casey. Peter Casey.
He did something decently respectable in his life.
I started the Zookers, who did Airplane and stuff. And
wow.
Yeah, I know that. So, but Peter and I'll show you how the business works.
Yeah.
Years later, my older son, Andy, needed a summer job, and I didn't have a show. So I figured I'd call Peter, and he had Fraser. And I said, hey, how you doing? Great. I said, listen, you got this show, and I got this son. He's looking for a summer job. And Peter said, let me call you back in 10 minutes. And he called back in 10 minutes and said, Andrew starts work on June 14th. That's it. I didn't have to remind him more than that.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Good for you. Cliffhangers or clean endings?
I'm old school. I like clean endings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cliffhangers are fun for like the smaller episodes now. You get like, especially the crime dramas. But I prefer a clean ending as well.
But you know what? First of all, television has changed, and so now they have streaming and things, and arcs and character arcs. We used to Brady Bunch, it ended. That was it. Next week we have something new.
True, totally new story. Totally.
But that's art is defined by its limitations, and that's not a bad thing. It sounds like it's a bad thing because you say the word limitations, but the limitations of the art form is that you have to have the size of the set, the thing that you have to get through commercials, so you have to have cliffhanger for commercials so that people come back. You have to have a teaser and all that. That's the form. And you satisfy the form. So now, if you're trying to sell something and it has these big character arcs, Brady had one character arc.
Yep.
The kids grew up.
Yeah.
So it moved along because they were like this and then they were like that.
Very true. Yeah, my number one cliffhanger that I keep going back to is the spinning top in Inception.
Okay.
The very end, just like, I want to know if it drops or not. Does it drop? Tell us. Scripted or improv?
Well, again, the art form creates that. If you're dealing with like Larry David, on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I think that really works for him with the improv.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah. Sometimes it depends on the director too, if they even let you have that space.
The director mostly television is producers.
Yeah, for sure. For
producers
your
media.
space, definitely.
Yeah. So, I look, if I was working with like Cosby, not now, but if I was working with Cosby or Robin Williams, also not now, but if you're working with one of those people who, that's how they're magical.
They thrive off of it. Yeah.
You put your camera back there and let them know what they're going to do.
Yeah. Say, okay, here's the script. We need 2 or 3 takes of that.
Right. They always talk about that.
Now 2 or 3 takes of whatever you want to do, and then
one for us, one
we'll
for
look
me,
at it in post and figure out what's better.
Yeah.
Love that. Who do you see yourself more in? And this is actually perfect because of the fact that you said that Mr. Brady was Sherwood in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. Who do you see yourself more in? Greg, Peter, or Bobby?
Oh, Peter, no question.
Yeah, that's you.
I'm a middle boy.
Yeah.
And Peter was also mischievous. Yeah.
I'll
tell you this one.
You were definitely mischievous growing up, and I'd love to do a second part with you just to learn more about your childhood. Yeah,
I'll tell you this about Peter Brady. When we were doing, and I would go if you know how Brady was done, there was always one character featured every week, one of the kids. And I was single at the time, so I would go to their house and work with them on talking about the story, and then I get a free meal. So Chris was Peter was doing this thing where he was trying to get a personality, and he was talking it said script said Humphrey Bogart. Did this like Humphrey Bogart. Well, Chris said, "Who the hell is Humphrey Bogart?" He's a kid, never heard of him. I go, well, and they couldn't order up movies like on your side or anything.
You can't just go to a streaming site.
No. And so I said, just do it like this. So I did an impression of Humphrey Bogart. That was pork chops and applesauce.
Very cool.
And so then Chris would, if you ever interview Chris, and I hope you get him here sometime.
Yeah.
And you said, how'd you do that? And he said, I never did an impression of Humphrey Bogart. I did an impression of Lloyd Schwartz doing an impression of Humphrey Bogart.
Well, maybe you can connect the dots and we can get him on, and then I'll ask him that question. This is a tough one for me to answer, but the Brady Bunch or Gilligan's Island?
I'm going to avoid the question in this way.
Yeah.
My dad believed they were the same show.
Interesting.
He said, it's all about people learning to live together
who
can't get away from each other. And so obviously when he did Gilligan, it was this island and these people of different sorts. And then when he did the family thing, it was 2 families coming together that needed each other. For me personally, I worked almost so much more on Brady.
Yeah.
I appreciated Gilligan. I did produce the TV movies. Mm-hmm. Rescue from Gilligan's Island and Castle Hartwell and Globetrotters, and I got into all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I know that show very well. but in my heart and soul, it's Brady. And also I was able to represent the kid's point of view. Some of the stories and some of the lines, especially the dating episodes, were my sad dating life.
It's from your own experience, you put it on paper.
Very painful stuff would go in there.
Yeah,
from me.
I mean, some of the best writing is obviously from personal experience. So it's relatable, and more than likely, someone else is going through what you went through at the same time. So
if you're watching a movie and something is so unique,
a
line or something, you know that it happened to the writer.
It's a personal. Goodnight, Jackie, or The Interval.
Okay, Goodnight, Jackie. When it finally got distributed, it was called Games Guys Play. That was not my choice, but it was called Goodnight, Jackie. That was my first movie.
Yeah.
And The Interval is my most recent movie, and
Correct.
it's just for film festivals. Won a bunch of film festivals.
Yeah.
Goodnight, Jackie. It was a version of my own life, which is personal, obviously.
You writing from personal experience again.
Yeah, well, I can't. Listen, I don't just do that, and definitely The Interval wasn't my own personal life.
Yeah.
Goodnight, Jackie was about a guy who was going with this girl, and he runs into his old girlfriend, and they have a fling and stuff, and it's all kind of R-rated, and it had Lana Wood who was in it, and Greg Sierra, Wendell Burton, Jim Backus, Barry Williams. Raised the money and made the movie,
Love it.
And The Interval is a short, but it's won some festivals around the world.
Yeah.
And it's based upon this concept, which is a guy is a soldier, World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's walking sentry duty. His wife shows up, and she's 85. He died walking sentry duty. She just died. And so she's very excited to be back with him. He's not so interested anymore. And so it's a comedy drama, but it's based upon that. But it starts off with the concept is how you die. That's how you are forever. All of us like to believe we get to be 25 again and can run around and do stuff.
Yeah.
But that's not the way it works according to this theory.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely need to find that one. I haven't seen it.
It's called Interval.
The Interval. Yeah. Originals or reboots?
Definitely originals.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of originals as well.
Yeah.
The reboots, it's like if you're rebooting something, go find something that hasn't been made yet and
unless it takes it to a different place. For example, I think there's nothing I like Godfather 2 better than Godfather.
Okay.
And it took it to a different place.
That's a hot take right there. I love it.
Yeah.
And last but not least,
Oops.
a Broadway play or a storybook theater play?
Well, I've been doing storybook for a long time. I'd love to do a Broadway play. We did off-Broadway play. Barbara and I, my wife and I went, and we did a play called The Babies, which I directed and wrote it. And it was about four character people who are babies.
Yeah.
And it's how they interrelate with each other. It was great fun. We did a little theater and did it for about several months back in New York. And I wish that had gone. My theory was that little theaters all around the country, blow all their budget doing Oklahoma or something, and now they're going to need something smaller, and here it is. And if I had really pursued it with a lot more, publicity and things, I could probably have promoted that more, but it is what it is,
Well, who knows? Maybe someone here is listening in and they
it's funny.
want to take it.
It's funny.
And
It
run
got
with
good reviews. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, if you're traveling to Broadway or off Broadway, make sure you use Coastline Travel.
Coastline Travel.
Go to coastlinetravel.com to schedule your next flight, book your next hotel, or take your next excursion. Go to coastlinetravel.com. And with that, Mr. Schwartz, we'll be right back.
Promoting your podcast is hard, and that's why each episode we promote a different podcast that either we enjoy or a guest enjoys. And this week was an absolute no-brainer. Because it's kind of a Brady episode, we had to shout out a Brady podcast. So go check out The Real Brady Bros. It's with Chris and Barry, who were a couple of the brothers on the Brady Bunch, and they actually break down each episode of the Brady series. So once again, go check out their podcast, The Real Brady Bros. And with that, let's get back into the pod.
I gave you a task to go on.
Oh, yeah, right.
To Momi to,
Mm-hmm.
and to check out all the movies that we have and shows, and said, Lloyd, can you go on to Momi to and pick one movie
Right.
that we'll both watch ahead of time, and then we'll come on the show and do kind of a spoiler-free review on the film.
Okay.
And this is a movie that I've never seen.
Oh, you had never seen
I
it?
had never seen this, so I was really excited. We have a ton of classic films, so like,
Right.
and I'll have some more questions about that. But you chose
Mrs. Miniver.
Mrs. Miniver from 1942.
Okay.
And if people are unfamiliar with Mrs. Miniver, we're going to go ahead and play the trailer.
The big event the whole country is talking about, Mrs. Miniver, a timely drama, tuned to the terrific tempo of the world of today. Mrs. Miniver, the story of a valiant woman whose love and devotion shield her family from the cruelest onslaught of devastation ever visited upon mankind. It is a story of youth, too, of young people who hold aloft against the shadow of the present everything that is brightness for the future. Mrs. Miniver is as great in its rich moments of quiet tenderness as in its vivid moments of unbridled terror and sweeping action. You will not soon forget the gallantry of this family of brave and decent people, whose courage is the flaming spirit of a family of brave and decent nations.
I wish that I was someone that works with us. There's a gentleman named Harry Marks, and Harry Marks he's like a classic movie historian.
Right.
We found him on TikTok. He's an incredible wealth of knowledge about classic movies, and we've partnered with him, and there's actually an introduction that he's done on Mrs. Miniver.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I really wish that he was sitting in my place to talk to you about this movie, because he's just a wealth of knowledge. So I've watched his introduction a few different times just to learn a little bit about some things that were there, but also watched the film, and it's an incredible film.
It is.
Why did you choose Mrs. Miniver?
I remember seeing it a very long time ago,
Uh-huh.
and I remember it made a real impact on me. I knew that it had won a bunch of Oscars,
Yeah.
and I then got intrigued with the idea of when it was done. Besides the story itself, it was done during the middle of World War II.
Yeah.
And it's a very patriotic movie. But we know World War II because we know what the result was.
Yes.
They didn't know what the result was.
They were in the thick of it.
And right.
Yeah.
And so if you remember, and I don't know how much we're giving away right now, but at the end there's this very patriotic speech that it just goes on. And I'm going, wow, and that was done during the war.
Yeah.
And you know how art can influence all kinds of things. And my dad, during World War II, worked for Armed Forces Radio. And they wrote a bunch of shows for the soldiers with major stars. And they would write in, called Mail Call, GI Journal. And they would write in, I'd like to see Clark Gable do such and such, and I'd like to Judy Garland do. And he wrote for all of those stars. And they would send them on these big discs overseas to play for the soldiers. So it's the influence of art on history.
Yeah.
Which is really important. And so I'm watching Mrs. Miniver, and I'm now looking at it through that lens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you had seen this movie already.
But a very little memory of it.
Yeah.
And then when I saw it after we talked about what am I going to do, and I said,
Yeah.
And also I thought it was fascinating. Greer Garson is very famous for one thing about this movie. Not the movie itself. She won the Oscar.
Yeah, no. I'm guessing I already kind of know where you're going with it, but go ahead.
She gave the longest speech winning the Oscar of anybody else ever. You know?
Which that record has now been broken.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
By Adrian Brody.
That's right.
Who broke his record again.
I know.
So she now holds the bronze medal. but pretty incredible.
And then thinking about that, and when you watch the movie, of how she is lit in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, she looks gorgeous. And she's a housewife in England. Mm-hmm. But she was beautiful in this movie. I mean, who was it? Wyler directing? Who was it?
Yeah, so I have a list here because there's a lot of names to remember in this. But yeah, William Wyler was the director, starring Greer Garson, who obviously won Best Actress at that time, which is now known as Best Female Actor. They've changed that. Yes. Walter Pidgeon.
Yes.
Teresa Wright.
Right. She won the Best Actress, the Best Supporting Actress, I believe.
Did she? Okay, I did not see that.
Yeah.
And one of the characters that I really fell in love with was Mae Whitty.
Oh,
who plays her grandmother, right? So phenomenal cast. And that I had it listed here, 5 minutes and 30 seconds, her speech record, which was broken by Adrian Brody. But yeah, incredible cast. I mean, they did a phenomenal job. But Mr. Wyler did a phenomenal job with lighting.
Yes,
and
especially her though.
For 1942.
I know.
I mean, it was really well done, and obviously black and white. But for people to understand that black and white films are very difficult with lighting.
That's right,
because you have no color to work with.
Well, you know, when you take a look at an Orson Welles movie, it was a Greg, I can't remember, the cinematographer, but you can always tell an Orson Welles movie on how it was lit.
Yeah.
But what Wyler did, I think he was much more actor centric than
that makes sense.
Yeah, but how that church scene at the end in the rubble of the church,
and you see even the planes flying.
Oh, it was fabulous
through the rubble.
And you go, how did they do that then? It wasn't CGI sending planes through. I mean, they had to do it with actual planes going through.
Yeah,
amazing.
It was phenomenally, really well done by them. Did any scenes or characters strike you as like relatable or modern? Like, despite being, this film is 80 years old. I mean,
right. I mean the younger character, her son and the girl.
Yep.
Probably yes, just because one guy was standing up for the old way and she was standing up like that. One of the things I'm jumping in, it's a different point, but one thing that was fascinating to me was at the end of the movie, you would have expected Mrs. Miniver. Are we how much are we giving away here to people? You know?
I mean, it's spoiler free, but I mean, if you need to give some details, it's a 2-hour movie. So, I mean, there's a lot to
But the fact
unravel.
is, Mrs. Miniver should be the one dying at the end of that movie. She should be there with a machine gun or something, you know. I thought that's what, because in my head, that's what happened.
Yeah.
And then watching the movie after many years, I'm saying, oh, with the daughter, oh my God, the young girl. But that's won her Oscar. So,
I mean, with all the public domain stuff going out, maybe we make a Mrs. Miniver horror movie where she's got a machine gun.
That was
Goodness gracious. Yeah, I mean, that would definitely change the ending.
Oh, the whole scene when the guy comes in the kitchen.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God.
I mean, that gets very up close and personal with your emotions.
And today too, if you're looking through today's view of something like that, and this guy is going to attack her or something, I think it was like you don't know. There was that tension there.
Yeah. I thought the writing was actually quite nice. one of the little pieces that were comedic to me
Yeah.
were the children.
Yeah.
And the way that they were able to play these characters that were so lifelike.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to get children to behave on set and to say the right things and how to say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like they did a really good job in
Very
casting
much.
the kids. The son, I can't remember his name, but the son, he said, and I put in the quotes here, is the war over, mommy?
Yeah. Is
And
that when they're in the bomb shelter? The shelter?
No, they're at the table, and I think it was like the first day that I think Vin comes back.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, is the war over, mommy?" And she's like, "Oh no, honey, it's just the first day." And then he's like, "Oh, good." Like, just the things that kids would say, right? Like,
absolutely. But think about that when it was done. It was
Yeah.
done during the middle of the war,
yeah,
and so that resonates differently now.
true,
If you think about that.
absolutely. Greer Garson's performance
Yes.
as Mrs. Miniver, it's been widely praised. What stood out to you about her role? Like, and obviously winning, Best Actress, but what stood out about her role?
What stood out with me now is I think it's a little over the top now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching it and I'm saying, I'm not so sure. I liked the whole thing about the rose, which was fascinating.
Yep, the
Like
Mrs. Miniver rose.
Yeah. In fact, when you look at the title of the movie, I didn't remember that there was a rose when I thought back about it. I go, oh, the rose. That's what.
Yeah.
It's not named after her in the movie. It's named after this rose, And I liked all the balance when you're talking about the comedic thing with the guy who did that last scene when the old lady
Yeah.
says, she gives up her championship or whatever
Yeah,
it was like that.
Yep.
That was fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
That was fascinating. And the importance of that, again, looking at World War II, we're in the middle of the war, and that this rose was important
Yep.
to the people. Life has to go on, and we do that now all the time. Things are horrible elsewhere, but we're still worrying about our little things.
Yeah. And that character who the toll man, he makes a comment and makes a line that to another gentleman, right? They're talking about the roses and the flower show and everything.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "Oh, and everything about the war and everything." And he said, "Look, the war will happen and it'll end, and like we'll come and we'll go, but there will always be more roses."
Isn't that beautiful?
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, really well written. This is a really long question. I just want to make sure I get this right, but
Can I give you a yes or a no answer?
sure, you can try to.
Okay.
There's a strong sense of resilience in the film,
Yes.
and obviously it's made during the war, but what do you think it says about hope and like a community under pressure?
Looking where we are politically right now, okay, and you think about the community coming together, what they did in this movie, and the fact that we're so split up now, but we look back about history where we've been split up before.
Yeah.
So I think that resilience can be there.
Mm-hmm.
And especially can be there if you go outside the box.
Yeah.
These people were functioning within the box.
Yep.
But we have to be outside the box. Like right now we're waiting for an election 2 years away.
Mm-hmm.
We can't
For California specifically.
California,
But, yeah.
no, in the country.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean the midterms.
Yep.
We have everything has changed within 100 days.
Mm-hmm.
I put on Facebook, and I don't normally go on Facebook, but I put on there, "Are you better off now than you were 100 days ago?" And I got wonderful reactions to that
Yeah.
because, and I'm very obviously very liberal, but I think that we can't wait for that. We have to be different than that,
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at this resilience thing, yeah. I mean, we've come back from these things. We have to come back from this. It's going to be a little more difficult,
And we don't typically get very political here, so we try to stay away from political talk or things like that, just because it's so across the spectrum of everyone. But that's a good way to put it. I mean, were you better off 100 days ago? But also at the same time, where will we be in 100 days too?
That's
And
right.
what are you doing now, or how are you reacting now that could affect you in 100 days too. So
I did a little movie, 1 minute movie. I take a 1 minute movie and I interviewed kids
okay,
before the election. And I just went to a park and we interviewed kids. And we say, what kind of person should be president? Somebody who tells the truth all the time. Somebody like all these things that these kids would say. And we put it out. I don't know. Everybody saw it. Certainly didn't affect the election.
Yeah.
But, oh well.
no, that's an interesting point. I mean, and this movie does talk a lot about, I mean, the resilience of this town.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's they talk about it as England,
Right.
but it's really this town.
Yeah.
Small knit community that like even the heiress or whatever her May Whitty, she's like after this there's a bunch of planes coming soon, we should probably get inside, get under shelter. She's like, hey, everyone come back to my house, I got 3,000 cans of sardines, we'll figure it out. And there's just this sense of community that I really enjoyed about the film.
But we talked before about they had to go ahead with their regular life, what this war was happening.
Yeah.
And people would disappear and go off and then people would die, all that.
They couldn't go anywhere.
But they're having this rose ceremony.
Yeah.
Bob,
It is incredible. But I mean, yeah, it just shows also that like we, at this time, like we don't understand what that, I mean, I don't personally in my lifetime understand what that is like to have planes flying above you and all that stuff. I mean, and just to live a long, normal life like that, it just shows a strong sense of resiliency from that community within the film, right?
Yeah.
And so really well done. I loved it. Who do you think is going to love Mrs. Miniver, and who do you think should go watch it?
Now, I don't know how you feel. I think everybody should see that movie.
Yeah.
Everybody should see that movie for a lot of the reasons what we're talking about here.
Well, I mean, anything that wins Best Picture should
I started to go way back and started to look at all the best pictures. Some of them are hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
Cavalcade or things, I don't know. But I was able to maybe now because of the internet, maybe because of what you're doing.
Yeah.
They're more accessible. I want to see every best movie. Yeah.
That would be a fun little TikTok page, Craig. We should do that. We just found out recently that like, oh, you actually have to watch the movie to vote. Like, oh gosh, why did that even get out?
But when I worked, as I said, I did that thing with Lillian Gish, who was in the first movie.
Yeah.
Okay, the first movie, and it was interesting just to. I went onto the set and talked to her a little bit about working with Cecil B. DeMille and these people. And it was a different kind of acting. It was a silent movie, you're all over the place. But it's like when I worked with, but when I wrote about John Wilkes Booth and Edwin Booth, and there was a style of acting that the two of them had. And John Wilkes Booth was known as the gymnastic actor, and he was all over the place. And Edwin Booth was known as the first realistic actor. This is back in 1870s. And I was able to find, and you can find recordings of Edwin Booth. Okay. Who is so over the top, but he was considered the first realistic actor. It looks like how acting has evolved, and how acting for the camera versus the stage versus television. And that's different working for the centered medium. Television is a centered medium.
Yeah.
In like if you take a look at Lawrence of Arabia, you open the shot with the camel coming. If you look at that television, you go, "What? What's that? Where's that camel?" You don't even see it because it's the screen, and those are different.
Yep.
The media are all different.
Very good point. Last thoughts on this film.
Okay.
I'll give you the last thought.
Well, kind of what we were talking about, which is the balancing of major events versus what this town was interested in, and how major events impact that, and the other way around too.
Yeah.
And I think that was really great in this movie.
Yeah. I'm totally blanking on his name, but the prime minister at the time, Winston Churchill.
Yes.
Had said specifically about this film.
Oh, good.
That if it wasn't made, like it had a very big impact on America.
Yeah.
Like supporting the war.
Right.
And so for Winston Churchill to say that is a pretty big piece of history to say about a film. So
Yeah.
If you're into history films or films about history, or if you're into war films or whatever, and I'm looking at the camera because I'm speaking right to the people that are watching this.
Good.
And I'm speaking to them listening too, because, I don't need to look at them. Yeah. They're just listening. But go check out Mrs. Miniver. It's a phenomenal film from 1942, Best Picture winner. It's, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, which I didn't know.
And I think, almost all of them were nominated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, phenomenal
Teresa
film.
Wright, yeah.
Phenomenal film. And at the same time, there's a ton of other classic movies that are surrounded by it on Momi too. So go check it out. It's free to download, free to use. Good. And Lloyd J. Schwartz figured it out how to go on to Momi too and watch all the movies and loved it. So you should too.
Good.
Lloyd, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can have you back on again.
I would love that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks for spending your time with us today on the More For Me and You podcast. If you've made it to the end, we appreciate you. Now, go do us a quick favor. Please like, comment, and share this episode. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode with the incredible guests we have coming up. You can also follow us at Momi2 Podcast on Instagram and on TikTok. Oh, and for your next movie night, check out the Momi2 app. It's free and packed with amazing movies and shows you've probably never seen. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you in the pod.